Welcome to Cheatham County Legends and Icons. Today we're talking to one of Cheatham County's best-known residents, Chonda Courtney Pierce. How are you, old friend?
Oh, I am old. That's for sure. That was the perfect lead-in. You know, it is. It's wonderful to kind of make it through some hard years of your life, to enjoy the spoils of your labor. But I so love being back in Cheatham County. I just love this place. It feels like home. It's been home for a long, long time, and I love it.
You know, when we were much younger, the people that we looked up to, like Claude Nolan and Benevolent Boyd, we thought of them as saints.
Yes.
And I just realized they're younger than we are now. So, do you feel saintly yet?
They died younger than we are?
No, they didn't die younger than we are now. I don't think so. But we thought they were, saints.
Well, you know what? I've always thought a few of the old saints that we knew, I think deep down inside somewhere they're not that saintly.
Oh, really? You think that?
I think there's rumors everywhere. I hope someone started a good one about me. I think that would be so much fun. When I really die, or when I end my career, I want it to be in the National Enquirer that I ran off with the Chippendales or something.
All the Chippendales?
All of them.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Not just one Chippendale.
Absolutely.
All of the Chippendales.
All of the Chippendales.
Well,
which are probably in a nursing home.
Well,
right
tell
now.
them to put on a shirt, because that's, they probably
At this age.
They probably would want to put on a shirt. Let me take you back to 1975.
Okay.
You were in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
I was.
And you had just graduated from the 9th grade, right? And so I guess your mom or dad or somebody came in and said, we're going to this little obscure landlocked place called Ashland City.
I had spent most of my childhood in Myrtle Beach, and then that last little bit, the 8th and 9th grade, we went to Orangeburg.
Orangeburg, okay.
I was in the band. I'll never forget it. And Orangeburg was a very African-American city, which was fine. And I was in the band, and there was 86 people in the band, and 5 of us were white. But did I learn how to march? Let me tell you, I had the jazz, it was just wonderful. And my father, and as we were just loving that little town, my father came in and said he's decided to take a church in Ashland City, Tennessee. And we were all like, oh, not because, we hated it already. One, the unknown is always difficult, but we do remember as a kid driving through in the summer times, once in a while we would come up and visit my cousin Jerry Huff, who lived in Ashland City in a farm.
Y'all would do a revival.
Yes, and we would do a revival at
yeah.
the church up. And so we would come and sing, my dad would preach and we'd sing. And so I remember driving through it, and all I could remember about it was it didn't have very many sidewalks. And that's because when you first come into town, and Kemp's Food Town was right, when you first come into town was Kemp's grocery store, there were no sidewalks really to walk to the next place. And I don't know why that stuck out in my head. It was before Walgreens and McDonald's.
Do you ever drive by the old parsonage over on Clifton Avenue and think, whoa, how far have I come?
Yes, actually I have.
You did?
When I first moved back to Ashland City, my son was helping me move, and when we came into town, I took him to all the old places that I lived. The house up on the hill,
Annette Drive?
Yeah, Annette Drive, and then I took him to Clifton
Avenue.
And of course, I always talk about Clifton Avenue because Cindy Toller cuts my hair. And so we get all the, the scoop and everything, what's going on in Ashland City. She's retired now, but, she was my next door neighbor, or lived across the street. And then the Holders lived next door, and so I've always stayed friends with them. But it is just, I have come a long way, baby. It's always, sometimes it's very bittersweet to go back to places where your loved ones were and your family was, and they're all gone. And so that's always, it's sweet memories, and yet it's going, wow. There are some days I'm glad we don't have to have in that house again.
You have kept lifelong friendships with Mary Beth Maxey,
yes.
Kim Talley, Trace Atkins.
Yes.
Did you meet them in high school, or was that something that happened later?
I met them in high school. As a matter of fact, I met Mary Beth just about the first week of being here, because my little sister Sherilyn and Betty Nell Binkley struck up a sweet friendship. And Betty Nell's father was I think, sheriff at the
Les
time.
Binkley, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
he was sheriff at the time. And Betty Nell and Mary Beth are cousins. And so I remember Betty Nell coming over to play with Cheryl and my little sister from time to time. And once or twice, Mary Beth would be along. And so then I started spending the night with Mary Beth right off the bat. It was so funny because Mary Beth's parents were so pleased. I was the only one that was allowed to spend the night at Mary Beth's house on a weeknight. But it was okay because I was the preacher's daughter. And the minute they'd go to sleep, we'd climb out the window.
So when did you meet, and how did you meet the love of your life, David?
Oh, that is sweet. You know, I met him through Butch Ely. Butch Ely was the very first student or person that I met here. That was my age. I met you right off the bat because of church. And then Butch worked at Reeks & Son.
Right.
And I worked at Shirley's Bakery.
Right.
And he would walk past my window all the time to go eat at Shirley's Bakery. And I thought, well, that's a nice looking guy. And I didn't realize he had to dress up because he was working at Reeks & Son, you know. But and that's the first person I met that was my age. And then, so Butch started hanging out, and he and David were very good friends. And somehow I think that's how I met David.
Your little sister, Sherilyn, your big sister, Charlotta,
Right.
your dad, Charles, and your mom, Virginia, and you. And Mike wasn't living with y'all at the time, but you have an older brother. We'll talk about Mike later. But you really hit the church and the town like a summer storm.
You think? I think that's precious.
Well, of course you did. And that's what I was going to
I
ask.
say it was a cool breeze.
Well,
A storm sounds like.
No, I think a storm. I mean, it was so. We never seen anything like it.
Mother was always, you know, teaching us a song or something that we could use in church. So we were always active in church activity and always singing, always even teaching Sunday school if we had to. You know, that's what preachers' kids do, clean the bathroom if nobody else does. So that was always our life. So it didn't seem unnatural to me. You know, when you say hitting it by, a storm, we always did that from what time I was a little girl. And we, if they were all living, we'd still be sitting around a piano somewhere singing. That's what we do. I look back at that now, and there was it was always expected. And when you live with that expectancy to always do nice things and good things and all that for the church, you're a big disappointment to yourself. You know what I mean? You set yourself up
Your
for
expectations
great,
for yourself
right?
are so high.
You set yourself up for failure when you teach your children that nothing is of value unless it's done in the church. And so then you close yourself off to the arts or to anything else that could be very progressive and very evangelical to be outside the church. But I never was allowed to explore that until much older in life.
In 1978, you did Oklahoma, which probably Miss Mayo said was perhaps the best show she ever did in all her years
Oh, wow.
directing shows, and you were Laurie. And
I was. I loved that. I mean, I was smitten. I was always interested in theater. But, you know, it was okay to do in context of schooling. But when I announced to my mother I wanted to be a theater arts major, woo, you know.
Because she thought you would starve to death, or?
Oh, not about starving to death. It wasn't
Not
for the
serving
church.
the Lord.
It wasn't service.
There you go, okay.
It wasn't service to other people. Isn't
But
that
it
funny?
is.
Now, I could have been a nurse, and I did toy with that, and she was pleased to death with that. I think when I went off to college to be a theater arts major, it sounded so foreign to my mother. Like, what are you going to do with that? How are you going to do that in the church? You know, I'm like,
So,
why do I have to do it in the church? Yeah.
so the first year you were here, the church exploded, and young people,
Yeah, it did.
and music, and your dad was one of the most gifted preachers I have ever heard in
Yes,
my
he was.
life. He was tremendous.
Oh, that's
And
so
then,
sweet.
well, I've said it many times.
Yeah.
But then we lose Charlotte,
Yes.
and it just seemed like everything's, to me, is that
Yes.
the way it's felt to you? Everything just splintered.
I think for me, you're right. That was the first of great tragedy in our home. But we had been experiencing some heaviness long before she died.
that none of us in
Right.
the town knew about.
Not very many people were privy to. David knew, of course, he met Charlotta 3 days before she was killed. And I love that part, Mary Beth knew, because she was privy to some of the dysfunction in our home because she was there often. But it was a great secret that we carried for a long, long time. My father's behavior outside of the pulpit was always straining.
Your father was bipolar? I mean, I don't know if he was diagnosed, but...
Yeah, when I was 14, I saw the certificate my mother showed me where we finally she had gone and taken him to a clinic, I think, in Pennsylvania to try to get some help privately. And he was diagnosed manic depressive was the phrase back then.
Right.
Now we know the contemporary is bipolar, but yeah, he struggled greatly with that. And so anybody in the inner circle was privy to that, and also the victim of that behavior. And it was difficult because the ups and downs, the sadness was always frightening because he was very suicidal, or the manic was always embarrassing because outside activity would always catch his eye. And there was always plenty of that in the church when women are very flirtatious to the people in leadership. And so, yeah, we were privy. That's kind of the life we lived. And so Charlotta's death was, we felt like, to me, that was icing on the cake, of trauma. And little did I know that would not be the last trauma of my life. But Charlotta was... she was angelic and beautiful. She was flawed and imperfect, which made her excellent human. You know what I mean? She was a magnet for young people, and our little community youth choir just grew and grew and grew, and we enjoyed all the plays that we would do and all the musicals that we would do, and we did several. And then the very last was the Ring All the Bells of Freedom. She was working on that, and we were supposed to perform that on the Saturday that she was killed. Yeah.
July the bicentennial.
July the 3rd,
1976.
Yes, but you know what, Dale? Let me just say this: I have always loved how you honor Charlotta. How she impacted you, and how you loved her. I think that's one of the sweetest blessings, and I'll choke up, that's one of the sweetest blessings of coming back to Ashland City. When you have lost everyone, and I have just about lost everyone, you want to be around people that will remember them and not be afraid to talk about them. Because so many times people are afraid to how to deal with you in your grief. I don't want to bring it up. It might hurt her. She might start crying. Well, no, we're dying for someone to remember the people we loved. We were so new to town that the day after Charlotta was buried, and I'll never forget being in the family car, and every policeman, the fire trucks and everything, all lining the street as the car drove into the cemetery, all with their hats, their hands over their heart or their hats off. It was so respectful and kind, and I had never seen that, or because that was kind of my grandparents passed, but this was so personal. But to be in a little town that within less than a year embraced us so much that the whole town gave us such tender love and respect, and I'll never forget that. And then, of course, about 22 months later, Sherilyn died, and you're right. And it's funny, isn't it interesting that Charlotta's death came as we were getting ready to perform Ring All the Bells of Freedom. Sherilyn's death or sickness came near the end of our last performance of Oklahoma, and there was like 10, 12 of them. She missed the last one because she wasn't feeling well. Yeah.
I remember that. I remember the green dress that she wore. I think she was buried in that dress.
Yes.
Yes, I remember.
And a lot of students wore their costumes, from Oklahoma. And at Charlotta's funeral, a lot of people wore their outfits from Ring All the Bells of Freedom. It was it's just a testimony, I think, to the charisma that they had,
yes,
and the way people were drawn to them and their sweetness. And maybe that is a very, and when we talk about angelical people, that I don't think they would have. I think there were events that happened down through the years they would not have survived. I know Sherilyn's heart was so tender and kind. I think the divorce of my parents she was really struggling with. I think my big sister had become and I know this from letters and conversations, my big sister had become quite bitter about Dad. and some of the things that we had gone through privately as young women. And in her letters to us from college that comes out, some of her writings, that I still have, that comes out quite a bit, that she was very disillusioned and aggravated and had gone through some personal pain herself. And so I always think maybe they got the better end of the stick. They got out of the struggle and the pain. If you believe in heaven, which I absolutely do, right, then you finally get through your grief to where, good for them. You almost are jealous going, how, was it Mother Teresa that said, God will never give you more than you can handle. I wish he didn't trust me so much. Boy, have I said that so much. Why am I still here? Am I not ready or worthy, or what else do you want me to do before I get to go? I wish he'd give me that quickly, so I'm ready. Yeah.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I'm not to the point of, offing myself, but I am so ready. I have outlived just about everybody. So, am I contrary and not ready? Or is there something left for me to do? I'm hoping it's
what do you think?
I don't know. I think sometimes I think I'm ready, and then I think maybe there's more to do. Although I'm at the age of retiring, sounds so wonderful. My job can be very grueling.
You went to Trevecca and Austin Peay, but your real big break came, I guess, at Opryland.
Yes. I had a wonderful uncle that paid for my first year of school. At Sherilyn's funeral, he came to my mother and said, what is Chonda's plan for college? And, of course, she died the summer before college. And I knew that there was not a penny to go. My parents had just divorced, and Trevecca was our denominational college, and it was so expensive. And then eventually at Trevecca, I was in the dean's office often. And not really for academics, it was really for, you missed chapel again, those kinds of things. And I was a rebel by then, a real rebel at heart, and I didn't do well there. I should have never gone to college the first year. I should have really gotten my emotions together. I had lost 2 sisters.
Well, is there guilt?
No.
Survivor's guilt, I think they call it?
Probably. That's probably one of the things.
Acting out
Probably. Very, very astute. And I've had a lot of counseling, and therapists and wonderful people that will say, you were carrying a great burden. I wanted to be all 3 girls for my mother. And so I did everything and, bent over my life over backwards to help her life, and lost my college, the fun you should be having in college and all of that. I hardly even remember those floating years of getting through grief. At the same time, those days made me strong. They made me really strong. And so when I decided to leave Trevecca and I went to Austin Peay, I had gotten a little acting scholarship at Austin Peay, and that helped. I think it was like $350. But that went a long way at Austin Peay. It wouldn't buy a book at Trevecca, And so I went and fell in love with theater and took theater classes. I tease all the time. When I went to Trevecca, they had one play and they did The Music Man, but they edited it so badly they even took out the shapoopy, which is, to me, one of the important songs and scenes for the reason of the play. And they took that. So, I was a rebellion already of going, you can't just edit, someone's body of work. And so at Austin Peay, I thought it was hilarious because the very first show I was involved in, as a first year in the theater department, I had to work in the costume shop. And she gave me the job of sewing men's members into underwear for a Greek comedy called Lysistrata.
Oh, the cottage piece? That was you?
Yeah. I had to sew, and I would sit there at the sewing machine going, I am going to hell. So I leave Trevecca. Where they're editing, Rodgers and Hammerstein. What could you possibly have to edit from Rodgers and Hammerstein? And so then I'm sewing penises into men's underwear because it's a Greek comedy about women who withheld sex from the Warriors, so they would stop the war.
I came to see you play Federica, which
Yes!
was originally a man, I'm a boy.
Yes,
and
and
you played. You played Federica, a cross-dresser.
Yes,
so you left
I was
Rebecca, and you were a cross-dresser. Okay.
It was like going from, it was Sodom and Gomorrah. And then it was like, maybe Mother was right. You should not be a theater major. But I fell in love with the people there, the professors. I don't know. Dr. Filippo, Griff, taught the shop class. To this day, I know how to swing a hammer because of Griff. It was a beautiful education. I wish my emotional life was stronger, was a little more on the healed side, so that I could remember more and more of the goodness of it. I met wonderful people, wonderful students. And the amazing thing is I was also a music minor. And I guess that didn't happen often in the theater department back then. There was not very many people that they were either all theater or all music. And Dr. Filippo and Dr. Mabry used to say, we've got one student who could bridge that gap. And so I took voice lessons from Dr. Mabry. I took a music theory class from Miss Mabry. And it was one of them that suggested you should go apply at Opryland, because they knew I was always working at a couple of jobs trying to, make, money or get a meal card. And they said, you should go and apply at Opryland. You've got such enthusiasm and everything. And they introduced me to Joe Gerald's. And he wrote a couple of the shows and was directing a couple of the shows. And they said, here's when audition is, show up and go. And I went to the first year of auditions, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of kids that audition, and I didn't get it. And that hurt my feelings. Down through the years, I finally asked Joe Gerald's, why didn't I get in that first year? He said I was too skinny.
Too skinny?
Yes, that has never been said of me since.
Now, you were skinny then.
I was skinny then. I was very, very, very thin, and I needed to gain some weight. And they told me that. You need to go home and gain some weight and learn how to dance. I didn't know how to dance. I was terrible.
Well, you're a Nazarene. You're not going to learn how to dance.
Oh, yeah. I didn't want to go to hell.
Yeah.
But now I dance all the time.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back with more Chonda Pierce.
Tennessee is number one in the country for election integrity. The Heritage Foundation named Tennessee the state where it's easiest to vote and hardest to cheat. Laws passed by the General Assembly, administered by the 95 county election commissions, protect your ballot box.
So you're at Opryland and you're learning to dance.
Yes.
And the next year you make it, I take it.
I did. And they put me in a show called Country Music USA. Opryland was fabulous. It had every kind of genre of music and talent out there that was amazing. It's so sad that it's gone. It was a wonderful place for young people to find work in a good atmosphere. Outside of that, it's a honky-tonk for a kid to, learn to sing and so, or they have to go to a community theater somewhere. And I did community theater at Fort Campbell a few times.
Oh, I didn't know.
And downtown in Clarksville a few times, in the theater down there. You always wonder the people that you vaguely know that you had good friendships with, and I don't know if it was because of trauma of the past or just life. And it's like, I can't remember this guy's name. What was that guy's name? You had a relationship. And I always wonder, what if they ever run across something on television and go, hey, I know that girl, I just always wonder. Not this fat, they won't remember. But it was that whole time in my life, working at Opryland, it was an incredible time of learning, so much about performing, so much about what kind of performer I wanted to be. I fell in love with Minnie Pearl.
You imitated.
They gave me the part of Minnie Pearl because that would help exclude me from the big dance number. But she sure could make people laugh.
Can you still do Howdy? And
I did Howdy, all that stuff. I did it for years and years. And then I developed a little bit of a friendship with her, Sarah Cannon. And she befriended a lot of people. I can't say that, she was just my personal, but she was very much a mentor figure in my life. And I began to study her and watch her life. And it was it was, and of course, what was so great about that, looking back from the beginning of our conversation, Mother became so excited and loved it. And she came to every show. She would get off work in the morning. She was a nurse at night. And she would come to that theater and she would sit and watch every show all day long. Sometimes we'd see her fall asleep, But she loved it. And I think what was so sweet, maybe it was a way for her to begin to relax, seeing her daughter perform, and it wasn't in the sanctuary of a church. And she could see that maybe people are drawn to arts, and then you still live a good life, and they see the life that you're living. And I think maybe that was such a good time for both of us, and we grew so much. Yeah,
and closer together.
Absolutely. Yeah. For anybody that grows up in dysfunction, and I've written books about it and made videos about it, forgiveness is one of the sweetest healing mechanisms that you can have. And even though my mother and I were completely just best friends and all of that, it took a while to be that way because we both were aggravated at life. I don't know. She never would voice this, but I'm sure she wondered every now and then, how come the other two, how come you left me with this one? And you feel that way. It's like this wild child, I remember one Christmas, we were so broke all the time. And I was hiding. This is when life is bad. When you're hiding a Chevette from getting repossessed. And who wants a Chevette anyway? But I was so behind on payments, which were like $86 a month, And she was always fussing, well, if you would just want to get a job, that would be up. And one year, for Christmas, I gave her a little box with a bow on it, and you open it, and there's a note in there that says, I got a job. I start today at 3 o'clock.
When did you realize that you were a comedian, that you were funny?
I don't know. I think, looking back, I was always loved the funny roles. I never went out for the leading ladies much. Even Laurie, when I was in high school, I tried to make her kind of funny, and I look back at that now and realizing I was always drawn to that. I loved everything Carol Burnett ever said or did. I was always drawn to that. I think for a long time, making the room laugh and your friends laugh at a dinner table or whatever, I'm sure there were times that was a defense mechanism, a deflection of pain. When that began to subside, and when healing began to come into my life, and I sought out healing, then humor became such a gift. It was such a joy. It became a real joy instead of the deflection of pain. But being the life of the party. Whenever you have the class clown in your class, and as you as a teacher, I'm sure you know this, they're usually the kids go home to the roughest situations or the most difficult times, yeah.
So a lot of comedians, of course, have dysfunction and tragedy.
Absolutely. I think a lot of it is they love the humor, they love the feeling of controlling the room, they love the feeling of being that euphoria of people caring and loving and laughing with you. And I think what happens is you go home and want to mimic that. You want to feel that 24/7. You don't realize, okay, that's your job. And I think that's the only saving grace for me in having longevity in my career. I've been doing this stand-up comedy for 32 years. And the reason I think I've survived my own self is because I realized a long, long time ago, that's my job. That's not my life. And so you try to go build a life somewhere else.
Did David help you write a lot of your stuff?
Oh, my Lord, yes. David used to chuckle all the time that his job was to do stupid stuff so I'd still have something to talk about. and our joke was, and he was so good. But, we would deliberately sit with a pad and pencil and write together. Or I would think of something funny, but he would come up with the better wording. The funnier words.
I mean, gosh, you must miss him in all kinds of ways, but particularly professionally.
I do. You can hire people, but there's nothing like this, just that, as you well know, there's nothing like somebody that knows you so well, knows what your next thought is going to be, and that helps the writing process so, much. But I feel he's still with me, sometimes many days. I don't date. I'm not really interested. I tried it. Didn't like it.
You were known as the Queen of Clean.
That's what
Where
they
did
say.
that come from?
I think it was Billboard magazine that gave me that title. I did a tour called Girls Are Back in Town, and it came up in that article as the Queen of Clean, because back then, and that's still true, most female comics are usually dirtier than the men. I don't know if that's their way of competing, or what that is, but when in Billboard magazine, my tour was doing so well, it made the magazine, and somebody said, there are good girls that do comedy, and she's like the queen of the clean ones, and that stuck.
Do you have some really dirty stories that you can't tell?
Yes.
So when you retire, maybe
Yes,
you dye your
that's
hair
what
and
I
go
should
out
do.
and do your other.
I'll be Chelsea Handler
Yeah,
then.
that'd be good. You're a stand-up comedian.
Yes,
You're a film actress.
I am.
You're a stage actress.
I am. Can you believe
You're
it?
a writer.
Yes.
You're a singer. You're one of Mike Huckabee's favorite guests on his show.
This, true.
So, if you could only do one of those things, what's your favorite to do? What's the most fulfilling for you?
Well, musical theater was always my favorite. It still
Oh.
kind of is. Because then you can do a little bit of everything. I still have one goal. I still have something I would love to do. I'd love to have my own show. I want to cross between Ellen and Oprah and Carol Burnett, but they don't exist anymore. The variety show is, I would love to do something like that. I am tired of the road. I am tired of a different city every day.
Touring is grueling as it sounds.
It really is. I don't care how nice the buses are. Now, I am blessed. I have always taken the summers and the winters off. Now that I don't have kids at home or a husband, my agents and managers, you can tell my summers and winters are getting shorter and shorter. I'm like, whoa, what happened? Yeah. And financially, sometimes they have to get shorter and shorter because you got to, if I don't work, I don't get paid. That's the hardest part about being a stand-up
pandemic was
comedian.
really hard.
Oh, my goodness. Not just the finances, that if we don't talk, we don't get paid. When what you do is what defines you, you're in big trouble.
Yes.
And stand-up comedy, so much of it is about you. It's about you. It's about your kids, your life, your observation. So your job is very much you. It's about you. But you got to remember that is still a job. And you got to find life outside of that, because that's what has to define you, or you won't survive. And that pandemic was hard on a lot of people in that way, that they realized, wait a minute, I'm putting too much stock into a career and I haven't built a life.
Of me.
Right. And so, it was hard on me. For one, I was alone. And when the pandemic came, it was like fresh into my widowhood. And it was a very, throw the mirror up in my face of going, if I don't start liking me more and finding deep healing, for who I am and the scars that I carry, I won't survive this. Yeah.
You've been very honest with your battles with depression.
Yes.
And so I think that fits into that. Was that really challenging you during the pandemic?
It was. I thank God that I went through a horrible depression about 15, 16 years ago. I wrote a book called Laughing in the Dark.
Right.
Became a bestseller. It was just, interesting. And it was a lot about this discussion we're having about the parallel of comedians and how we laugh, and yet we're going through dark times. What I learned through depression and through the biological issues of it and the emotional issues of it, if I had not had those tools in place when this isolation hit our country, I don't know that I would have survived it. And so I'm very, very blessed. It's like a scar that you carry became the very thing that got you through the next tough stuff. And
Is
so
that a
it
thing
was.
in your life, kind of?
Yes, it is.
Let's talk about Roll With It.
Oh my gosh.
Ashland City just loved that.
I know!
It was like Hollywood, and
Hollywood
their
came
Hollywood
to-
actress had come to the small town. And so was that a great experience for you?
It was great. It was such hard work, only because it's low budgeted. You got to cram it all in as fast
Right.
as you can. So it happened so fast. think I hardly got to enjoy it. You know what I mean? The process. But it was just a really wonderful to see it happen in Ashland City. Now the behind the scenes issues, that's a whole nother ballgame that people don't realize. There's so much that goes into these things. People get involved with something that you thought was yours and it's really not. And so then other people had to say, from word choices to everything,
Right.
And then when you see it, you go, I told them they should have not done it that way, But it was my first major role in a major motion picture. I've done little parts in Hallmark movies for a long, long time, and in other faith-based movies I've been in a lot, but I never had a role, the lead role of a.
Is there going to be another one?
Not with that group. We'll find other producers.
What's it like to be famous?
Oh, well, that's one of the wonderful things about moving back to Cheatham County. I'm not famous here. I'm Chonda Courtney. If I do run into somebody, it's so rare that somebody's at the grocery store, because I'll have my hair up in a ponytail and no makeup,
Right.
It's so rare that somebody goes, oh my gosh, you're Chonda Pierce, It happens a lot around the airport or in Nashville, or when I do the Opry and I'm up, at a restaurant or something right after the Opry. But
The Opry, what's that like?
it's magical, and it's just the greatest thorn in my flesh. I think I can relate to the Apostle Paul when it says I've become grateful for this thorn in my flesh because it keeps me close to God and my dreams in check. I don't think I'll ever, that was my big bucket list goal of my whole career, that I thought, if I ever become a member of the Grand Ole Opry, I will retire and I'll just be on the Opry, and that was my dream. I had it all mapped out. And about 6-7 months ago, they made Henry Cho, which is a wonderful young man, and Gary Mule Deer, both of them the first comics that's been inducted into the Opry in a long, 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 long time. And that happened a few months ago. And it just killed me.
Really?
It just killed me. I even cried crocodile tears like a spoiled baby. And I realized I don't think that dream will be for me. And that I was almost, I had to grieve that, not as hard, but just as much like a death, because you have this dream for a long, long time.
Well, that doesn't mean you can't eventually get it, does it?
Oh, I don't think I will. I've been on the Opry hundreds of times.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very blessed and honored every time. I love it. I'm probably edgier than they would like. I'm much more conservative than they would like. Now, that doesn't make any sense, I know.
You talk about the conservative. You delved into politics. I mean, you were a big Donald Trump supporter, and I was wondering if
thanks for bringing that up again.
Well, I was just wondering...
and that's when you stopped talking to me for months.
I did not...
Just kidding. Oh, I hit a nerve.
That is not true. I did not stop talking to you for months. You will always be my friend no matter what. But
that's not true for the rest of the world.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
Friends.
Did you lose audience?
Friends.
Did you lose friends? You lost friends.
I didn't really lose a lot of audience. As to tell you the truth, that someone stuck a microphone in my face one time and said, "It's elections coming up. Who are you going to vote for?" That's what. Tell you the truth, I guess if he gets the nomination, I'll have to vote for Donald Trump. Because I'm
about this coming in 2024?
No, last
in 2020. Okay.
Right, in 2020. And that's what I said, I guess I'll have to vote for him, Donald Trump. And I go, well, yeah, he's got terrible hair, but what he stands for, that's what I stand for in a lot of ways. The person that he is, I didn't like him, but that's all we had. I wasn't going to vote for Hillary Clinton. And so that's how that went down.
So this is 2016, not 20.
Yeah, 2016.
Yeah, right, okay.
And so that's how that went down. Within a couple of weeks, I got an email or so inviting me into certain circles, that were supporters of his. And I went, well, heck yeah, I'll go hear what he had to say. And I went, in a room of about 50 evangelicals. And he came in, talked a little bit, had prayer. I peeped. I watched him pray. Because, I'm like big, I'm such a skeptic sometimes, and I'm a reader of people. And I watched his wife, and from all I could understand from reading someone at that moment, I felt he was very sincere. And so I said, yeah, that's who I'm going to vote for. And so I did a couple of interviews, and it, you know, and I would say, and people would ask me, it kind of threw me into Christian political circles. And I didn't know what the outcome of that was going to be. Neither did I think a lot of those people in that room knew that we were going to get beat up down through the months. And then I got a beautiful engraved invitation to go to the inauguration and to perform. And heck yeah, a little kid from Ashland City, absolutely I'm going to go. And I got a new dress, and I did my thing. I had been and then I got an invite to eat dinner at the White House.
Oh.
And I went, and
What they have?
Chicken. But it was good. I know, me too. I was like, and I have a whole, you know, out of it came about 45-minute set of stand-up comedy of just me going to the White House, trying to, you know, learn what fork to use, and you know, all these funny things I had to say. I even did a stand-up at the dinner, and I did a couple of jokes for him, and he laughed. You know, I talked about when he gets to heaven, Moses is going to part his hair where it's supposed to be parted, you know, and everybody laughed, you know, and all that, and it was delightful. It was just delightful. I went to the Rose Garden to a couple of ceremonies. The economy was flourishing. You know, the gas prices were down. People hated him as a person, but they were sure enjoying policies, you know, that were working. And then, you know, but his character is who his character is. I think he's a bloviator. I think every time he would tweet something stupid, he knew exactly what he was doing. That's the only way that he can get in the media, you know, is by saying something stupid. So then they'll talk about it all day long. You know what I mean? So the media is the really culprit here. And we would get invited to everything, you know, in the rallies and everything. And I enjoyed it. You know, you get a hotel, it's nice. I got to stay at Trump Towers. It was beautiful, you know. And so, you know, and I would go. I would go because that was just a kind thing to do. My mother always said, you know, it's the president of the United States. And so then I told him, the day it came out on the internet that I was a Trump supporter, I lost 12,000 followers in one day of a Facebook. One day. I mean, to watch the number go, you know, it's kind of, wow, oh boy, now what have I done? The next day, it went up 77,000 followers. So I gained, you know. And I told him that, of course, that pleased him to death. But the truth of the matter is, the sadness of it all is everybody is so preaches diversity and we love each other no matter what, but they don't. They love you only if you think like they do. And what I would get aggravated at more was the artist who wouldn't get in the fray. And I didn't like artists that if I don't mind an artist at all that bashes Donald Trump, I go, well, thank goodness they'll at least let it be known. But these people that tried to ride the fence, they don't want anybody to know anything. It's because they're terrified to lose a fan. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's not good either. The Bible talks about lukewarm people, you know. So
spitting them out.
Yeah. And I don't like fence walkers is what I call them. I just don't care for it. That is a dangerous place to be. You need to make a stand and stand for what your truth is. Now, I don't have to agree with one word of it, but I totally appreciate someone bold enough to go, this is what I think, this is how I'm going to vote, this is what I think Donald Trump is, this is what I think he's, you know, jerk, I think he's got good policy. People that would just be bold enough to get in the fray. I got aggravated at the people that would not.
Are you going to be involved in the upcoming 2024 campaign?
I don't know. I keep getting pulled into it and pulled into it and pulled into it. And my thought is, I am so disappointed that we have no other alternative in the Republican Party. Donald Trump's numbers are here, and the next one that hits it is so far down here, you know, and that's a shame. I wish there was someone a little bit closer in the polls and all of that. And at the same time, our present administration, I think it's senior abuse. I think that man needs to go home and enjoy his senior years and his grandchildren and his family. I think he is not the one in charge. Somebody is pulling the strings up there. He's too old. And I have been around him, Joe Biden. He has been at this politics for longer than I've been alive. And and he is just too feeble to run again. So I don't know what the alternative is going to be for the Democrats, and I don't know what the alternative is going to be for the Republicans. That's a scary issue for our country. When there's no one rising up on either side that gives people confidence. No one has confidence in either one of these sides. And that's a scary place to be.
More with Chonda Pierce right after this word from our sponsors, the Cheatham County Library and the Cheatham County Archives.
The Cheatham County Archives houses the county's founding documents. Our oldest document dates to 1854, 2 years before Cheatham County was established. Founded in 2019, the Archives preserves priceless documents and photographs. Visitors are welcomed Monday through Wednesday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Shh. Welcome to Cheatham County Library in Ashland City, where not only can you check out a book, but you can do so much more.
Chonda, your mom was so much fun.
Wasn't she?
Well, she just, and I don't mean this as an insult at all, but she kind of reminded me of Aunt Claire on Bewitched. I loved her so. She was so much fun. And your Aunt Ruth.
Aunt Ruth.
Oh my goodness. I've seen Billy Joel and I've seen Elton John and I've seen
come
Ruth
on.
Laviner.
Oh, come
Those
on.
are the three best pianists I have ever seen.
No, you should see my sister-in-law, Doris.
Oh, Doris, of course. Yes, I have
Yeah.
seen. Oh, yes.
She's the best,
Of course.
yeah.
Well, anyway, so much fun, so much talent. So I want to talk about you as a mom. Are you a fun mom? What would Zach say about you?
I think I was. You'd have to ask Zachary. He would say, yes, she's crazy. I think we had, David and I raised two incredible children, completely, different. I mean, other than one's a boy, one's a girl. Very intelligent children. They got that from their father, I'm sure. To be honest, I think it was a good mom. I really was. It's a bittersweet subject a little bit because I look back at if I can't know then what I know now, but given what I know about learning and healing and who I was and what I'd been through, I think I did the very best that Chonda Courtney could have possibly done at being a mother. And David Pierce the same way. David and I grew up with trauma, in our lives. And so we brought these two people from dysfunction and we gave birth to two people. And I think we did a really fine job raising them. Now, my job took me away from home, I think, too much in some of their formidable years. I say that, and my son will go, that's crazy. We saw the world. I've taken my kids from Africa to Israel to every state in the Union. They've traveled on a bus. They've, been the child of people who thought I was a star, and they've enjoyed all the gifts of that financially. My kids never had to pay a dime in school. I was very blessed. And David and I grew up so poor that we never wanted our children to have to work hard or suffer while they were in school.
Right.
So that they could really concentrate on their studies. And we pulled that off. And so I think I did the very best job that I as a human being knew how to do. And I have a son who will say that, who is just loving. He has surprised me with his life. And how he's taken ownership of the farm and taking care of things and picking up where his daddy left off in a lot of areas. And I have a daughter who's extremely creative, beautiful. She married a fine man, a lawyer, and they live in Knoxville.
Let's talk about Mike just a little bit.
Oh yeah,
Because
there you go.
Mike's
Yeah.
doing great work at Branches. I know
Yes.
that's a cause dear to your heart.
Yes.
And somebody asked me about a year ago, who's your favorite pastor? And I said, Mike Courtney. And I haven't even seen Mike in a while, but he has such a great presence on Facebook.
Yes, he always has.
He's a great writer.
He's a very good writer.
Phenomenal
I
writer.
wish he would write more. Mike wrote a book, Failure and How I Achieved It. When you read it, it will blow your mind. And it's interesting about my brother and I. He's almost 10 years older than I am. He was also gone to college when things at home got really, really bad. So he and I have a totally different viewpoint. I mean, he knows Dad struggled, but as Dad got older, it was worse and worse. And so all that was, we have a little bit of a different viewpoint, but we both agree Dad was not all right, all there. We both have the same opinion of Mother. She's a lunatic, but she couldn't love her kids more, We have difference of opinion of a lot of things socially. I'm a wine drinker. He thinks alcohol is just of the devil, What's so interesting, he's entered into his career never speaking a word about our childhood. Just rarely mentioning it. I mean, he would mention Charlotte and Cheryl, and occasionally in a sermon, he would mention a little bit of, of a father, having a disappointing father or something like that, but never in the detail that I do when I write or I tell a personal testimony or whatever. He just chose to not do that. And I got paid to write a book. The very first one I wrote, called Second Row Piano Side, gave some of the details. Yeah, not all the details, but a lot. And as years go by, dysfunction is like a sore that you're cleaning. It is the more gunk you get out, it leaves room for healing. But until that happens, you got a lot of stuff to finally get out of there. But all that to say, I've blabbed. For 30 years, I've lived a life just blabbing. He didn't tell a thing. His life completely imploded. I mean, ruined his marriage, ruined his career as a pastor, everything. He wrote a book, Failure and How I Achieved It. I made a living telling everything. And my life has been financially an amazing blessing, but yet everybody around me is, dead and gone. You can have siblings in one family and both come out of it with completely different viewpoints and complete different way that it affected your life.
Right.
And that is completely the story of my brother and I. David's alcoholism near the end of his life was very difficult, because I had to handle it one way and as best as I knew how, and I'm sure my brother had a different opinion. But out of our pain came this desire of knowing something's got to be better for people out there that get into these dysfunctional lives. And we founded Branches Counseling Center in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and they see thousands of patients every month. It will be the shining beacon of our entire lives, that all the difficulty that happened in 1975 to here, good came out of all of that.
You're so lucky because, most people, many people don't find the love of their life. They don't find the romance.
That's true.
But you did.
I think I did. I do.
But that doesn't mean you can't find it again. But you said no.
Yeah. You remember taking me to see Butch Ely all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, I had the biggest crush. And I still have a crush on him. He's happily married, and I adore his wife, Ginger, very much. Yeah, I love them very much. But it's funny how I carried that torch for years, and even in high school reunions and stuff, I would just get so mad when I saw him. You broke my heart. We're like 50, and I'm still holding that against him. I don't know. And I saw Butch and I bring that up because I saw him not long ago at our 45th high school reunion. And I looked at him and went, man, he's just an old man now. And we all are.
Well, we all are.
And the crush is gone, It's just an old man, old friend. I don't know. My life, for one, my phone never rings. I haven't been asked out on a date in long time. My phone never rings. No one's interested. I don't know if I am too loud and rambunctious and I hear this happens a lot for successful women. I'm set in my ways. I don't need a man. And I think men in my generation don't know how to not be needed. I want a man, but I don't have to have a man. And sometimes in this generation of men, They want to be needed, and they want to be the chief, and they've got to make the decisions and everything. And you try to be the damsel in distress, but it just doesn't work for me.
No, that's not you.
It's never worked for me.
That is not you.
So-
well, what's a deal breaker?
He needs to have his own teeth.
His own
That's
teeth?
very important to me.
Not necessarily his own hair, I hope.
Yeah, no, hair is overrated. I don't have a lock on it, but I've closed the door. At first, I'll be honest with you, it was so rather embarrassing, to talk to my girlfriends, and
Why?
no one ever asked me out. No one ever asked for my phone number. I can go to the nicest places and have dinner, and no one across the room ever comes and says, "Oh, may I buy you a drink?" All that Hallmark movie crap, it never happens. It didn't really happen that much for me, to begin with. I was always the pursuer, as you well know. I think David would still be dating me if I hadn't put out an ultimatum and said, okay, we need to get engaged or married, because I'm not doing this anymore. We had dated off and on for years and years. And it just doesn't happen. I went to a bar here in Ashland City when I first moved back, and a couple of people asked, but I knew him too well.
That is a deal
They
breaker.
were still on parole, so I'm not going out with them. It's given me a great love for single women my age. That it's very hard. And most men my age are looking for women about 45 years old. And so I'm looking for a man about 45 years
Well, there
old.
you go. There you go. What's heaven going to be like?
Heaven is going to be this. We just sit around and talk. We won't remember or talk about any of the tough stuff, but we'll have our sweet tea and we'll sit on a porch and, hey, look at that sunset over there. Hey, there was something Shakespeare said once. That's what you're going to do. And I'll go, oh, there was something the Apostle Paul said once. Paul, come over here.
Shakespeare. Yeah,
Come over here.
yeah, there
Let's
is.
see what you thought about that. That's exactly right.
Well, Chonda, as always, I knew this was going to be fun. I've had nothing but fun with you since 1975. I cannot believe how many years that we have been together.
Yeah.
Well, I just adore you and your success, and this has been great. We could have gone on about another 2 hours. I had a bunch
Probably.
of questions that we skipped, and
Oh, dear.
well, maybe we'll do part 2. But anyway, continued success,
Thank you.
and I speak for thousands of people. You've meant so much to all of us and been so entertaining, and we love you.
Thank you.
That concludes this episode of Cheatham County Legends and Icons. Until we meet again, I'm Dale McCarver. Everybody, please stay safe.